All right. Welcome everyone to the March 27th Dev Call. We've got quite a bit on the agenda today as well. Lots of stuff has been happening, so we'll try to move through things fairly quickly. As always, feel free to ask questions either by stepping up or posting in the chat, which I'll watch between conversations. Cool. Let's start with crypto. We'll just do a quick update on our priorities there. And as a quick reminder, the way our team is set up and the way we focus on priorities is there's three pods. One is focused on crypto, which is how do we get the wallet easy to use? How do we make it easier for developers to build applications that can access that users can use from their wallet? And how do we make like on-chain stuff more prevalent in Farcaster? Second is social, which is all about how do we get more users into the app? How do we make sure they get engagement if they're posting good stuff? And how do we make all of this more useful for developers building on the platform? And then part three is the protocol, which is what are the underlying primitives we're building to make it easier for other developers to build clients, apps, and so on. Coming back to crypto, focus is still on growing usage. We have over 70,000 funded wallets across the entire Farcaster, across the entire Warpcast product now, which is very exciting. It's grown a lot faster than we thought it would, and we're going to keep driving on that. The second focus is on making frames better. We've actually seen a pretty big uptick in frames usage. I'll pull up our internal dashboard over here really quickly. We use Amplitude for some of this stuff, but you can kind of see over here that the number of unique users using frames has started to go up, where we have like, almost 32K launches of different frames. And we're also seeing the number of transactions in these frames go up significantly. So developers are getting more people to use frames, and they're getting more people to do transactions in frames, which is really exciting. What's most interesting is it's not like a single meta or a particular thing that's influencing it. You can kind of see across the board that there's like each of these colors is a different frame, and you can kind of see across the board that all of them happen to be growing to some extent. And so there's this larger wave of more and more people using frames, discovering better things to do with frames. And so we're going to continue to invest here because it feels like there's a lot of developer energy going into this. There's a lot of things happening that users like, and we're going to invest in doing better docs and better developer tools, which should both come out this week. This is in addition to the rebrand where we're changing the name from frames to mini apps. We've already talked about that and why we're doing it. Mini apps are just more in line with what Telegram, World, and other apps are doing. And so renaming makes it easier for new developers to understand the rough paradigm of what the thing is and how they should be interacting with it. Cool. Really quickly, we have a new doc site. This should be public in a day or two, but just as a quick preview, it's a full-blown site just built for mini apps. It's got a lot of great content. It uses Vox, which is the new developer docs tool. My favorite part is the Ask in ChatGPT, where we'll actually load up an markdown summary of the page you're looking at into ChatGPT, so you can ask it questions really quickly. And hopefully, the site makes it a lot easier for new developers coming in to be able to build stuff. And even for existing developers, I think there's a lot of nuances that we have not documented really well. And so this will go into all the details about auth, webhooks, notifications, and all of that good stuff. In addition to this, Gabriel has been working on a new set of dev tools, which we'll actually make public later today. So these are going to be significantly improved frame developer tools that you can use on warpcast.com as you're building, testing, and using frames. So we'll share some more about that later today. Cool. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat before I move on. Um, Easier version to start vibe coding from. Yes, this is all going to be focused on V2, which is like now called mini apps. So it's hopefully just going to plug you right into the stuff that you need to know.
Aaron, did you want to
Okay.
show the LLMs button on the side on the left?
Oh yeah, I talked about it. Did you want me to actually
No,
click on it?
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, cool. And then uh, let's see, there's one more question. What kind of breakage should builders expect with this rebranding? Any changes to the official existing SDK types, frame embed, HTML tags, etc.? Where we expect we'll confirm like in a day or two, but we expect there to be no breaking changes. So for a while, we may support like older and newer nomenclature for certain things. We may have the same package name, etc. But we'll publish a full list of that. But our goal is that like most things will just almost everything will just transition seamlessly. There may be a few inconsistencies where certain things at like lower levels are still called frames, and we'll kind of have a migration path where we support both for a while and then eventually move over to mini apps. The name of the framework we're using for docs is Vox. HorseFacts just linked it in the chat. Cool. Yeah, and Tony's been working on all the new documentation. We're going to do one more pass internally. There's still a few sections that are unfinished, and then we'll have a preview for other folks to give feedback on. And as always, it's open source, so you can play around with it and make changes. Cool. Next up is airdrops. So the other thing that we've been focusing on, this is like a high level product bet, is airdrops until now have largely been sort of these one-time events where like users get a reward and then it just kind of like fizzles out after that, and there's not a lot of engagement on the product. What I think the ideal state of an airdrop is someone making an app and creating a token that actually has something useful associated with it, like Bracky being an example, is actually able to target good users, give them a small amount of the token, say, hey, come try out my app, join my channel, follow my account. And in exchange for that, they're actually able to get user attention and convert it into people using their product. That loop we think is really, really powerful and has been underexplored in crypto because the UX to do all of that is just really challenging. And what we're trying to do with Warpcast Rewards is go out and find these developers that actually have really great frames and tokens, come up with a way for them to find the ideal users for their product on the platform, people who've used other similar apps, people who have interests that match what they're doing, give them some number of tokens, let them claim it as an airdrop, and then come in and take the action, whether that's using a frame or whether that's a dashboard. And we've been running this for like a couple of weeks. Early results have been really promising. I think Bracky got a lot of great users. There are a lot of folks in the timeline who are like, hey, I don't actually really do sports stuff, but this was very, very interesting from a crypto POV, and getting this token made me so much more likely to use this frame. And now I'm a user. That's like kind of what we're going for. And we're very excited about how the first 2 weeks have played out, and we're going to see if we can go and scale this up. So we just did one with Jam recently. We want to talk about in a second because there's been some folks talking about that, and we're also doing one with Eggs, which is Board, which is new thing later this week, which has also been announced. Um, Linda and Karthik have been working on this. Linda, do you want to just add a quick note about Jam and that airdrop?
Yeah, so for context, we did the airdrop with Jam yesterday. Had done some due diligence before that point, looking at their AI agent channel, did a video chat with the team, plenty of DMs, felt it was okay to airdrop 10K to 885 users based on their criteria. Today, Jam announced a new airdrop mechanism that's separate from ours, where it's lock to claim. So basically, you lock up Jam tokens in order to be able to claim future airdrops. I don't agree with that mechanism. Was not disclosed that beforehand, so I think that that's a lesson learned where we're going to get feedback from the team on filling out a form on saying here's our future token airdrop plan, and they will ask them to release that publicly so that there's more transparency around the token itself. Not going to penalize anyone for selling the Jam airdrop for those that disagree with this token mechanism. So I'll share that publicly. And then we've just also given feedback to the team, hopefully, that they don't do this claim mechanism in the future. So please give us more feedback on how we can improve these programs. These are the few experiments we're running, and we feel really excited about these airdrop offers. So want to make sure we're always improving them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I
and
just want to add one, Vern, do you mind if I just
yeah, go
um
for it.
I think we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in terms of people talking about, the trending on-chain notifications that Warpcast sends. We're doing the airdrops. Oh, are you guys leaning hard into degen? So first of all, I just like reject that claim categorically in the sense that, like, one, we're presenting a bunch of information that's happening within social graph that if any other wallet does that, people are like, oh, okay, cool, you're just showing me trending information. And I think people are now claiming that this is somehow a degen thing. I think two, with the airdrops, we're trying to move fast and experimenting, and we built our own claim flow that, like, we think is pretty great, but we can't control the actions of others on that kind of stuff. I think we're going to continue to iterate and improve our process, and most importantly, and I think we saw this with what we've done on the token pages, right? So we've added additional context. So if you deploy a token from Clanker, I think the one yesterday, Giblify, you can actually see the original cast, who deployed it, what percentage of people are holding. And you're going to see us just continue to iterate there, where we're going to try to present the maximum amount of useful information to people on anything that's happening on chain, whether that is a trending notification or an airdrop, and then just make sure people are equipped to make their own decisions. And I think, like, there's a certain group of people on the network that somehow think that we should be making editorial judgments beyond kind of some base level of like, is this actually a scam or not? But I think I reject that. And I think what's most important is we actually create a way for people who are building on chain that if they actually get social traction within Farcaster, that they can get additional eyeballs and distribution. But at the same time, people have the information to make their own decisions on such stuff like that.
Yeah, just to echo Dan, I think the model for Farcaster and Warpcast, as we integrate more on-chain stuff, is we are going to try to surface as much information as possible that is trustable that you can look at to make your own decision. We're not going to take positions on whether something is good or wrong or make editorial judgments on that. And I think the recent ship that we did, where you can now see who launched a clanker if you open up the token page, that's an example of the kind of thing that we'll do, where it's like, hey, we're not telling you whether this is good or bad, but we're giving you more context about who created it, what they said they created it for, why they created it, and then you're free to make your own judgments on whether you want to buy this or not. And you'll expect to see more of us, more of that kind of stuff in the future. Cool. A couple of other notes. We're kicking off an audit this week for the mobile wallet. So this is going to be something that we do a deep dive into, just get like a really, really thorough perspective on security, poking holes at everything and the way that this wallet is constructed. Remember that we use Privy for this wallet, and one of the benefits of Privy is that it actually allows sharding and recovery across devices. So it makes it very easy for this wallet to follow you around on different devices, and for the wallet to be usable on web should we invest in that piece of infrastructure. There's a doc that you can go into. I can share the link later that actually talks in detail about how the architecture works and all of that for those that are interested. And we're really focused on like driving this for the best possible user experience. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I'll touch on. One is the internal wallet should let you use the custody account and import other accounts. One of the trade-offs of using this particular Privy architecture is because of the way it uses Shamir's key sharding and the way that their infrastructure is set up. It's mostly focused around we will generate a wallet for you and you can export that and take it into other wallets, but it's not going to support import as easily into this ecosystem right now. So we're not going to support import, at least for the time being, but maybe in the future, we'll be able to support that. And the goal is to eventually get it to web so that you can use it there as well. Another question of, would you be opening up the APIs for finding holders based on the contract address? I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you're looking for token holders, I think like Dune or any of these other APIs would just kind of give you what you're looking for. And we have an API that now lets you export all of the Farcaster preferred IDs. So this is on Warpcast, the Warpcast APIs page. So you could quickly take that, overlay it with any of the other queries, and be able to pull it. I don't think we're trying to get into the
Gotcha.
business of providing token balances. I think that that's actually a really hard problem, and there's a bunch of great providers that are doing that really well. And there's a lot of nuance around doing that performantly, correctly, etc. So the best way I think is take our list of token wallet addresses and then go map it to what you're looking at over there, which by the way is the same providers we use for our balances.
Cool.
Cool. Let me see if there's any other questions. I found myself switching from accounts to accounts and it fails to attach the correct workload to the mini app. Jack, let's follow up with you offline on that. Kind of curious on what that bug is. If you want to make a cast or send me a DC with like the specific issue, we're happy to take a look at what's going on there. Rich also just posted in the chat APIs that Naynar actually has to be able to fetch relevant holders for tokens. So Naynar already has this stuff and you should be able to use this out of the box with that. Great. Last note is we're exploring two other ideas. This is still very early, but we just wanted to share with folks so that you can see where we're going and how the things that we're thinking about. One is web wallet. So this is the idea that like the same wallet that you have on mobile is also usable on web. And we're going to use Privy sharding to make that accessible. So the idea is that like without an extension, if you're able to sign into web, confirm from your mobile device that you want to give permission, you can now just like start using the wallet right from your web and doing this in both a secure and user-friendly way. That's one project we're exploring. The other one is Solana support, which is a thing that we've talked about for a while. Users have been asking for a while. Now that the Ethereum wallet is at a point where we have pretty good support for all the core functionality and it feels stable, we're starting to look into what would it take to add Solana and or other chains to this in the future. So we'll have updates by the next dev call on whether we decided to pursue any of these directions. Dan, anything you want to add before I move to social?
Nope.
Okay. On the social side, a big thing that we focused on is search improvements. So Ashot and Akshan have stood up a bunch of new infrastructure for search using OpenSearch. So our DC and cast search are now significantly improved. You should be able to, from the DC page, search through all DC conversations. And the cast search, which previously was pretty broken, like it was very slow, would fail on a lot of common queries, now works very, very quickly and has much better matching for a lot of the content that's on there. So please try it out. If you notice any bugs or have any feedback, let us know. But we think this has been like a significant improvement from where we were a couple of weeks ago in terms of finding stuff in the app. All right. Next up is verifications. We talked about this briefly last week, but let me touch on this again. The high level goal behind verifications is we want to make it easier for developers and users to be able to find users that are valuable to target. And right now, when you look at all the users that have signed up for Farcaster, there's some percentage of them that are like spammy accounts or spammy users that you don't want to target with an airdrop or even reaching out to and things like that. The way that developers have been targeting users is using Warpcast like spam labels. And you can kind of think of the spam labels as a measure of how interesting are someone's casts to the rest of the network, right? Like, so if if you have the highest score in that, it means that like, hey, most likely most people that come across your cast would think of it as interesting, unique, etc. And if you're at the bottom of that level, it's like, hey, you're just copy pasting and posting images from the internet or repeating stuff. There's nothing original or unique. You're just like reposting stuff that is uninteresting. That's the spectrum that's been based on. The interesting thing as we get into frames and other applications is that like someone's ability to cast interesting stuff may not correspond exactly with what do you care if they're a user on your app. If you are someone who plays Farmville a lot and you don't actually cast that much and therefore you don't have a very high score on the sort of spam and interestingness, you're still a valuable user for developers to target. And so we wanted to provide this other building block, which is, hey, is this user some sort of lightweight proof of humanity? Is like, is this user a real human and should I go target them? And the way we're doing this now is by allowing people to verify other socials and other things that have some proof of work component to them. So phone numbers can't be easily spoofed. It's not easy to just create like thousands of GitHub accounts or X accounts or wallets with balances more than a year old. So we have a suite of these different verifications, and we've added GitHub, Discord, and LinkedIn to this list. And we're going to come up with a metric that says, hey, if you have at least 3 out of 5 of these done, you're most likely a real human. And that's like one input that developers can use to decide which users to target. They can also continue using the spam labels, mix and match whatever they want to target and go after the right users. We expect to see a lot of developers using this for like the airdrops that they target. We expect to see them in frames when you think about like which users you want to incentivize and so on. Let me pause here and see if there's any questions. There's like more details I want to get into about how we're thinking about this, but we can go there. Okay, cool. One question that we've heard a lot is, are these going to be on the protocol? And the answer is, with the exception of phone numbers, yes, we are going to give users the option to make this public on their profiles and in the protocol. We're going to start probably with Warpcast API. Same way we did for X verifications. We launched the API first, and then like a couple of weeks later, we moved it to the protocol. We want to measure success rates for these verifications. Like, let's say, most people try Discord and fail. It doesn't work on mobile. We may just kill it. But assuming things work well, we're going to continue to move these pieces of data to the protocol so they're actually useful for Naynar and other people building on the ecosystem. So expect to see APIs and eventually protocolization of these verifications soon. Right now we have I have the numbers here, but about 20,000 verified Discords, 19,000 GitHub, 161,000 X accounts, and about 95,000 phone accounts. Discord and GitHub are more recent, which is why the numbers are lower. But I sort of expect those to grow over time as well. We also looked into WorldCoin, ZK Passport, and some of the other stuff, which I think is really cool. The challenge with a lot of them is the mobile experience is either like not existent or like quite in WorldCoin's case, it's like going to be a lot of work for us to implement. So relative to the challenge with WorldCoin is the number of our users that have World IDs is low because they're not really available in the US and in many of the countries where our users are. And combined with the SDK, there's no mobile SDK. And so it's like kind of hard to build this today, made this a lower priority for us. We hope to go back at some point when the team has a mobile SDK and actually integrate this and make this another proof that people can add in. Same for ZK Passport and some of the other building blocks that people are working on. They're they're getting better and better every day, but they're not quite good enough where users are able to just use this today. So hopefully a lot more ZK like crypto forward verifications on the protocol soon. Last note, we changed one of the things there. We had this beta scoring where we would give you a number of points for each verification that you connected. And after playing around with the data and for a while, we actually wanted to change how that works. So though it's moved from a, hey, you get so many points for each of these verifications to just like a, X out of Y. So it just shows you, hey, you've done 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, whatnot. And we probably will have a simple system where it says something to the effect of you need to fill, 3 out of 5 to be considered verified or to have a verified account on the platform. Exactly what that number is, we'll decide in a week or two once we've seen more data and we've had a chance to play around with the numbers. We may also have limits for accounts. So for example, if you sign up with a Twitter account that was created yesterday, that may not qualify you. You can connect it, but we may not accept it until it's at least several months old and things like that. So there may be a min bar for like how much balance an ETH wallet has to have or how old a Twitter account needs to be before it can qualify as a valid verification. Cool. Next item we're working on is topic-based discovery. So high level idea here is, can we use modern LLMs to like help with discovering new content? There's a lot of great stuff on Farcaster that doesn't get discovered because someone is talking about Rust contracts over here, other person doesn't know that this exists, and so there's this sort of mismatch between interests. The thing that we're trying to do is, can we use LLMs to categorize every cast, basically take every cast the image and say, what's this about? And actually pull out some unique and interesting categories that are non-obvious from just like a simple text-based analysis, and then be able to tell people, hey, these are the topics that people are talking about, and really help discovery, especially for more narrow topics like engineering stuff, Rust, or more niche interests. This should make it easier for people to discover things that they care about and that they want to do. Gio has a question if isn't that too expensive? Early prototyping probably costs about like a cent a cast at under a cent a cast at a high level. Casts are like fairly small token wise, so it's like pretty cheap. We may also scope it to things that get engagement. So like we may have a simple bar of like, hey, if nobody has liked the cast, we may not score it. But if you get at least 1, 2, or 3 likes in the first hour, then we're more likely to put this to the LLM and see what it works. So again, very early prototyping. This is one of those sort of high risk, high reward bets, but hopefully by the next dev call, we'll have some thoughts on whether this works or not. Cool. Yeah, Dylan has a point about like showing trending topics. That's exactly what we're thinking about, which is like trending topics customized to you. So every time you see something, it's like, oh, people on Farcast are talking about this, and it can help you discover new things that you might like or might be interested in. Cool. Any protocol changes related to making LLM access easier? I'm not sure I understand that question, Kamak. Do you want to elaborate on that? Um, No, maybe we can chat offline about this. If you have any ideas for things that we can do, that would be interesting. I do know that people have built vector embeddings of casts. They've actually just processed and sort of published all that as a public good. I think that that's an obvious thing to do to make to just reduce the cost of using LLMs, is like pre-compute embeddings and things like that. So we're going to see if we could first build a useful product on top of this, and then if we can, and we can open source any of the things that we are paying for that we have side effects on, we would love to do that to make it easier for other devs to build on it. And I think there already are some vector embedding databases of casts in the ecosystem. So if you're looking for it, we can go find it. Cool. And then last thing is on social, we're running another experiment. This one's weekly kudos. Hopefully launching this week or early next week, where the idea is we surface the most interesting people, the people you've engaged with the most over the last week, and give you an opportunity to send them like a kudos. This could be USDC, could be a token, but some little way of showing you your appreciation by sending them something on chain. And we're excited about this experiment because I think it's sort of got high potential because I think traditionally tipping has not worked on other products and other apps because the friction to send is very high and like sending money is often not the exact right incarnation. But the couple of unique things about Farcaster is you've got a wallet built into the app. You've also got tokens, which are in many cases a much more meaningful form of appreciation where you can send them something like higher for completing their goals or things like that. And so that might be a much, much more interesting form of interaction. So we're going to play with this experiment where folks get a push notification saying, hey, here are the people you've engaged with the most. Would you like to send them a little thank you? You can tap stuff and send them money or tokens on chain. And this could be really powerful, especially for new users that come into the platform. I think like earning your first token is that magic aha moment. And this like makes it much, much more likely that you're about to make that happen. So again, another experiment. We'll run it for a few weeks or a month and see if it works, and go from there. Cool. Last note is on protocol. There's a bunch of stuff cooking there. So the first one that I want to call out from last week is primary address verification FIP. This one is in effectively finalized state. So once everyone, if anyone has any like last objections on this, please let us know. If not, we're going to move forward with finalizing and publishing the primary addresses onto the protocol. Primary addresses won't go to the hubs, just Snapchain. Good question. I think given where we are in terms of timeline, likely it will just go straight to Snapchain since we're going to have everyone migrated to Snapchain by the end of next month. So that is the most likely outcome for where these data sets end up. But that's a good segue into talking about Snapchain. So let me pull up the list here really quickly. All right, I'm going to drop this in the chat as well so folks can open it up if they like. But so Snapchain mainnet. We just kind of started the phase of migrating to Snapchain, and I want to walk through this to help anyone running a hub today understand what they need to do. So the very, very high level is if you don't run a hub today, this should not impact you. If you're using Nana or any other apps, they'll handle all of this for you, and you don't have to worry about the specifics of it. If you are running a hub, there's two things you need to know. One is you need to migrate, and we'll go through the specific timelines of when you need to migrate. And what that means is if you're running a hub on your own infrastructure, you now need to run a Snapchain node on your infrastructure, and then you need to move all your APIs that were previously reading from the hub to now reading from Snapchain. The second point is there will be some minor changes to APIs. For the most part, APIs are compatible. So if you ask for cast, ask for reaction, stream, those APIs, the shape of them is all exactly the same. But there are some important semantic differences that you need to model. For example, previously when you sent a cast to Snapchain, it would just validate it and say confirmed, and you would be like, this is done. Now, because there's a block building process, you'll get a confirmation that the cast is valid, but you'll have to wait for it to get confirmed in a block before you can tell your user, hey, this is done, and this is going to show up on all other clients. Now, that should be fast, often in a couple of seconds or much sooner, but that's the thing that you might have to change about how your API and data processing works. Hopefully, these changes are fairly small and easy to migrate to. And again, we're here to help you. And again, if you run into any issues with the migration or need more time or need help, we're going to work with you to make sure that that happens smoothly. Okay, with that said, let's kind of walk from sort of the launch date backwards on like what are all the different phases and how things will work. So the most important date that we have right now is the mainnet launch, which we think of as April 15th. This is the day that you have to be on Snapchain. So if your hubs and systems are not reading from Snapchain by this point, they're going to start falling behind. Sorry, if your services are reading from hubs and not from Snapchain, they're going to start falling behind. There's going to be new data that's being published to Snapchain that will not show up on your hubs and your infrastructure. So that's kind of our launch date target for when hubs will launch. Working backwards from that, we think that April 12th is when hubs are like fully ready to start using on the network. This is when all the data is published to hubs. You can start writing messages in there and you don't have to like sort of multiplex between these systems. And so that's when we're encouraging all developers to start publishing to hubs. March 29th, the week before that, this is actually it's going to be tomorrow, so it's March 28th. That's going to be when all of the data is backfilled to hubs. So as of tomorrow, hubs and Snapchain are going to be in parallel. So you can start reading from hubs if you like, and you can even start writing messages, reading from Snapchain if you like, and you can even start writing messages to Snapchain if you like. So to recap, Starting tomorrow, sometime in the day, you'll be able to use either a hub or Snapchain to start writing to the network. Starting on April 12th, we're going to encourage everyone to say, hey, you really, really should be only writing and reading from Snapchain. And starting April 15th, hubs will start falling behind, so you have to start writing from Snapchain. So migration period effectively starts now. We're ready to work with everybody to start moving over from hubs to Snapchain. And by April 15th, we hope everyone has moved over. And if you can't do this or run into issues, again, we're here to help you. We'll make sure that this happens. We won't launch this without your app being migrated. Is there any congestion ballparking yet? Min-max delay for block building during peak load. The throughput is really high right now. We have sort of like 1,000, 2,000 TPS, something on that order, and we have casts are much fewer. So everything kind of gets into the first block. So it's all, I believe, sub-second or at least multiple seconds at best. If traffic goes up a lot, if let's say we have 10 times or 100 times the number of casts we do today, then you might see slightly longer delays. I don't expect it to be as high as 30 seconds even, but it may creep up into the larger second amounts. Cool. That was a lot of information. Let me pause here and see if folks have any questions. And let me open up chat as well. Will the Snapchain validator node application be reopened again later? How's the requirement to be qualified? So again, going back to like how we're thinking about validators versus nodes. So validators are the block builders of the ecosystem. They're effectively the machines that are always online, running, producing blocks, and they're working together in the system to continue producing blocks. Two things about validators. There are a lot of requirements for how a validator needs to be run. You need to have like really, really, really good uptime. You need to be able to respond to incidents fairly quickly. If your validator continually goes offline, it's going to get kicked out of the network. Basically, there's a lot of technical challenges with running a validator, and it's something you should only do if you really, really care about it. There are also no rewards for running a validator. There are not rewards now. We don't plan to have rewards anytime soon. So there's no upside financially to running a validator. So again, the recap is please do not try to apply for a validator if you think that there's any financial upside. There will be none. Why should you run a validator? If you are building a very large app on top of the Farcaster ecosystem and you want credible neutrality, you want to be able to say, hey, no, I don't have to trust that the other validators are true. I'm also running my own validator and I'm willing to invest the engineering time, the overhead, the incident response, and all of that to make sure that I have direct access to published blocks all the time. That is a great reason to run a validator, and you can reach out to us and we'll work with you to launch. Nanar has been working with us to run the first validator. They're going to be the ones we launch with, along with two of our own validators. And over time, we'll work with other teams like Base that are building large clients on the ecosystem and anyone else interested and add more to the validator set. We think there's an upper bound of like about 10 validators that can be run before the system starts getting a little too distributed for efficiency. So we will try to balance that between 10 of the most active participants in the ecosystem. So there's a lot of neutrality between who gets to publish blocks and disseminate them.
Varun, do you mind if I just add a point in here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think one important thing is like there is no gotcha here of like, haha, like you guys aren't decentralized because there's only two validators. Like we are explicitly making a decision that this is an optimal way to grow Farcaster in a world where there will be two, right? We will run one and our will run one. So there are independent decisions. Our actual goal though is to never have any issue for any valid, Farcaster user to, send information into a validator, it gets put into Snapchain. And it'll be very apparent if things are getting mucked with. We are in an environment where we are not actually competing with anything that is actually more decentralized than we are, right? So good example, Blue Sky AT Proto has had tremendous growth, more centralized than Farcaster. And so I think we have to approach this from an extremely pragmatic approach of we have sufficient amount of decentralization here relative to the scale of where we are. If Farcaster has 100x growth, we will have to come up with additional scaling to Snapchain and other solutions. And we will also consider, based on where we are as a protocol or where we're kind of like closer to heading, how do we sufficiently decentralize, the network even more and make sure that it is robust. But relative to the scale that we are, this is going to be sufficient. And I think that it's like really important that people understand that trade-off that we're making relative to like where we think the most important thing for the protocol right now is to grow users, which will help get more developers, more frames, and that's the flywheel we're actually really focused on.
Yep. There's another question on how much does it cost to run a validator? We expect validators to be fairly expensive. Roughly, I think it would probably cost around $500 to $1,000 a month, depending on your infra setup and where you're running it. We also expect validators to get more expensive over time. Again, because we're dealing with social data, there's going to be a lot of information flowing through. There's going to be a lot of disk usage. There's going to be a lot of byte production. This is not like Ethereum, where the goal is that everyone can run a node on their individual machine. The goal is we're actually going to scale by having better hardware at the validator level and be able to get much higher throughput as a result. And the important reason why it's okay for us and why it might not be okay for Ethereum is because Ethereum is basically guaranteeing the security of their network by distributing the validators. We are not guaranteeing that, like we are using Ethereum to guarantee the security of our network. The list of keys that can control addresses, all of this stuff happens on Ethereum. So we're taking advantage of that. And we can actually scale much better with larger hardware to get better throughput on these validators, which is why we'll be scaling through the validators and the nodes getting more and more heavy over time as the network grows. So we sort of expect it to start at 500 and increase proportionally with the growth of Farcaster as these get bigger and bigger. Okay, cool. Last call again. If you're running a hub and you haven't talked to us about migrating, if you have any concerns, anything at all, we're here to help. Please reach out to me or Sanjay. The team is heads down, like making some upgrades happen today, but starting Monday, they're going to be really focused on shepherding everyone through the migration process. All right, I think that's all we have to discuss today. I don't see any other question. Oh, there's one more question in chat. Notice the jam airdrop was conditional on following an account. Yeah, the high level template that Karthik and Linda have been working on is there's a bunch of actions that you can ask a user to take for an airdrop. They could be install a frame, follow an account, might have follow a channel or post a cast like we did for hire. Those are kind of the basic building blocks that we're thinking about. If there's any others that teams want or have in mind, let us know. We're always happy to consider adding more to these templates. Cool. Question from Vlad. Airdrops via some action in frames combined with notifications can bring fun and less sell pressure. I didn't play for this one, run out of. Yes, I agree. I think we've already talked about the gem piece. I think Linda covered it. High level is, we worked with them on an airdrop for, hey, you've got this token, distributing it to users. They have a different second mechanic, which is about staking to get more tokens, which I think we were not aware of and aligns less with our philosophy of like, hey, are you building a useful app that you're trying to acquire with tokens? So had we known this, we might have been less likely to do this airdrop right now. But ultimately, each team and project decides what to do, and we have very little control what happens post airdrop, and we're not here to sort of police that. But we are going to lean a lot more into favoring airdrops that are closer to Bracky and higher and more driving engagement and driving usage of frames. That feels like a much more powerful thing. So I agree with you on that, Bud. Did that answer your question? I want to make sure that I got the point you were trying to get at.
Well, kind of. I mean, like having the airdrop notifications where a user has to do something in a frame, to have a better distribution of the people who were airdropped the token, and that they like do some work and not just like have some free money. Like an example, score a 1 million score in a pinball game,
Ah, I see. So they ask you like, hey, we should consider exploring actions where it's not just like install the frame, but to get the airdrop, you actually have to do something within the frame to actually
Yes.
to get the airdrop. Yeah, I think that's a cool mechanic. We optimized for the simple model of like, can you trade tokens for attention, which is effectively the advertising model, is can you get people to open up the app and do stuff, and is that useful? So far, the feedback has been that like this very, very simple thing has actually been good for hire and for Braki. I think those two teams are very happy with the simple model. I think it would be very cool to explore some of these other things, like having to do an action. It just gets much harder from a UI perspective to like correctly model it. Where do you give the airdrop, etc. But I think it's something that we can evolve to over time if this basic model ends up being successful. As part of the Solana wallet exploration that users could potentially use mini apps in Solana, yes, the idea, like I think in an ideal world, Solana support would mean equal support across everything, verified addresses, being able to plug into mini apps and other things in the ecosystem as well. May not have all of that on for V1, but the goal is to eventually get there. All right. On that note, we'll end here and talk to you all soon. Thanks for coming, folks.